Coming up on Network Africa, former African Union Commission Chairperson DLAMINI-ZUMA and ex-wife of President Zuma sworn in as MP for the ruling African National Congress. President Trump meets with African leaders, affirms America's commitment to the growth of the African continent. And Mayor of Uganda, Erias Lukwago, arrested amid protests against draft legislation that could extend longtime leader Yoweri Museveni's rule. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Millicent Walker. We begin with Kenya, where a new date has been set for the rerun of Kenya's presidential elections. In a statement, Mr. Wafulu Chebukati, chairman of Kenya's Electoral Commission IEBC, announced that the rerun would now be held on the 26th of October. The electoral body had initially planned to hold the election on the 17th of the same month. Mr. Chebukati believes that the change is meant to allow the Commission to deliver an election that meets the standards set out by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court in Kenya had ruled that the August 8th poll was neither transparent nor verifiable. And at least 60 people are believed to have been trapped in a building in western Kenya after it collapsed earlier today. Local media reports that the three-story building in Kapsabet town, Nandi County, was under construction when it collapsed. Initial reports are indicating that 40 workers were injured and the whereabouts as 14 others are missing. Officials say it is not clear why the building collapsed. Well, let's go over to South Africa, where Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma has been sworn in as MP for the ruling African National Congress Party. Ms. Dlamini-Zuma, who is the former head of the African Union Commission, will be replacing politician Paul Mabe, who, according to local media, resigned to seek other interests. Although she dismisses speculations that she might take up a cabinet position, her return to Parliament is seen as a way of preparing her bid to run for South African presidency come 2019. There has been widespread speculation that President Zuma might consider reshuffling his cabinet to accommodate his ex-wife. And US President Donald Trump has described Nigeria's president and 9 other African leaders as partners in the promotion of transparency, peace, self-reliance and security. He gave the thumbs up at a meeting with President Buhari and his African counterparts on the sidelines of the ongoing 72nd United Nations General Assembly in New York. President Trump, in his address, affirmed his belief in the growth of the African continent and offered assurances that his country will remain committed to the development of Africa.
African leaders meeting with President Donald Trump on the second day of debates at the United Nations General Assembly. 9 presidents from Africa were represented here at the launch meeting, including the Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari. President Trump sees tremendous business potential in Africa. 6 of the world's fastest economies, according to him, are from Africa, hence the need for a stronger partnership on all fronts. The U.S. is pledging greater cooperation in the fight against terrorist groups, including ISIS, Al-Qaeda and Boko Haram, to cut down their finances.
The United States is proud to work with you to eradicate terrorist safe havens, to cut off their finances, and to discredit their depraved ideology. Prosperity depends, above all, on peace. The United States will partner with the countries and organizations like the African Union that lead successful efforts to end violence, to prevent the spread of terrorism, and to respond to humanitarian crises.
North Korea as a security threat remains a prime talking point as President Trump urges all African leaders to take a united stance.
We wanted the U.S. to engage more with Africa, also in the area of health. And he was actually very complimentary about African countries and African governance.
The meeting maybe was...
Earlier, the president of Nigeria held bilateral talks with the King of Jordan, and clearly the fight against terrorism in Nigeria is receiving additional boost. In a statement by the presidency, President Buhari said the donation of about 200 armored fighting vehicles by Jordan reflects true concern for Nigeria's security situation. Very clearly, Nigeria is working with other countries in the United Nations to stamp out terrorist threats. And this is made very evident here as it joins 49 other countries to sign the Nuclear Weapons Prohibitions Treaty to ban nuclear weapons. From New York in the United States, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Well, joining us to talk more about that luncheon is ONYEKACHI UBANI, a legal practitioner and public affairs analyst. Glad to have you on the program.
My pleasure.
Well, let's really take a look about the meeting yesterday with, the African leaders. What do you make of some of his comments? For one, he said, Africa has tremendous business potential. He further said he has so many friends coming to our countries trying to get rich.
Well, that's true. When you talk about potential, African continent remains one of the most area where you can do trading. In terms of population, we have it. In terms of wideness and largeness, we are good in all that. And so any European or American continent, we've been interested in Africa because of the great potential that we have. As I said earlier, the issue of population. Like Nigeria, for instance, we are the most populous in Africa. And so if you want to do business in Nigeria, you know how many persons you will sell your market to another. So the issue of potential is very, very great. So he was right when he mentioned that African continent remains one of the gray areas to be exploited by the American entrepreneurs.
It would also interest you to note that when he made that statement, there were some sentiments that said what he said invokes images of exploitation.
Well, when he came in, he was talking about American first. And he has maintained it, even his address in the UN, he's still insisting that whatever interest he's going to pursue, it will be American interest first. And so you cannot take that away from him. But it's for us also to look at also areas for us also to exploit. In terms of the fact that we have all the potentials, we produce the raw materials, and so we must begin to engage in a bargaining enterprise that will actually favor where you get the raw materials, because what they do is that they take the raw materials and then do finished product and resell back to us. So you are the primary source of whatever they produce over there. So what price, what bargain method are you going to use in order to ensure that you up your price and make it very impossible for them to probably exploit you? So I think it's something that has to be very mutual. We have to look at what we have and then begin to lay a structure how to make that particular thing to be marketable and then at a price.